Hey, have you ever noticed that disappointment is not about what happened? It's about what you thought would happen. And then it's about that nobody ever says it out loud. This is the undercurrent. Hey, have you ever noticed that when we talk about disappointments or expectations and disappointments, we're really kind of digging deep into this whole issue of how we develop patterns of creating expectations and then embracing disappointments. Well, the issue is I think these two things run hand in hand. Sometimes you have this expectation, this strong belief that something is really going to happen, right? Or it's going to be that case in the future, only to wind up living in the sadness of the disappointment. The disappointment is the displeasure that's caused by that non-fulfillment. I really thought that this was going to be my moment. I thought this was going to be my year. I thought this was going to be the book. I thought this was going to be the new launch. I thought this was going to be the content that was going to really store. And then you live in the sadness of that non-fulfillment. I want to talk to you about and then share. I want to talk to you about disappointments and expectations and then share some of my own because everybody lives in that space. I know we live in a world where everything has to be perfect and we want to have this pristine image that we show to the world that I've got it together, I'm moving forward and all the things. But if you're a real leader, if you are sincere about your humanity, if your dust, dirt, and divinity are working in sort of a threefold chord, then you know expectations. You have them, you live with them. Any strong, driven person is driven by a sense of expectation. We wake up with expectation. We wake up, we decide our day, we determine our moods because we have something that we've crafted in our head that would happen that day. And I don't know about you, but I'm the type of person that I need to move in those expectations so that at the end of the day, I can look back and see what was fulfilled and then quietly sit in the sadness of the things that just didn't get done or the things that never materialized, right? And then live with the displeasure of that non-fulfillment. I often ask people all the time when we talk about like real life matters. I'm like, what did you expect? And then they'll say, well, I expected blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm asking, well, if you expected that, then what did you do to fulfill that expectation? What small steps, what was your next best move that brought you to fulfillment? Now, I got to admit, and I'm not embarrassed by it, but I'm just being transparent with it, that I've had to live my life full of disappointment, full of non-fulfillment of expectations. A lot of times people who are creative, people who are self-driven, people who are who carry many mantles or they do a lot of things, it's because they have these multiple layered expectations that things are going to work out. You see the world differently. In your mind, it wasn't supposed to work out like this. So you have expectations that you create from your purpose and from that sense of creativity. And I'm telling you, and I know that we got these now segments of people, these are creatives, these are but if you are living life, if you are leading, if you're influencing, then you are driven by expectation. Because that's the thing that I talk about, that even though you perform well at your job and you lead your organization well and you lead your team well and people follow you and things happen, no material thing can pay you. It is the fulfillment of the expectation, which we'll call purpose. Purpose has to pay you. If purpose doesn't pay you, then your expectations are, they're marginal because, yeah, you fulfilled it, but it wasn't a part of your driven purpose. What lights me up is purpose. What lights me up is knowing that I have an expectation to fulfill a certain thing, to do and to be, right? Not only just to do, but to be. What is your expectation of being? And then what is your disappointment around that expectation? See, disappointment, I just want to leave this with you real quick. While it is defined as sadness, while it is defined as a displeasure caused by non-fulfillment, right? Or one's hopes of expectation, that what you thought would happen didn't happen, what you wanted to happen didn't happen, who you thought you would connect with, you didn't. And all of these things, you put yourself in position, posturing, you do a lot of work because you have an expectation. I want you to now grab this, that really developing patterns of success will absolutely bring fulfillment, even if your expectation is not fulfilled. So there's an internal fulfillment. You've got to make sure that what you do is for you and that you're driven by it, whether or not the outcome is aligned to what you expected. I really hope you're hearing my heart, because disappointment usually starts, it usually starts as an unspoken expectation. What are you expecting that you've never said? What do you want to materialize that is only in your head but not out of your mouth? Well, you know that I'm a person of faith, so here's the deal. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So now all of a sudden, it's interesting that when we take a look at how this journey of life, even when we take a look at God, the Bible, if you subscribe to the Bible, let me just give you a biblical narrative. Biblical narrative of creation is really interesting because we see no tools. There's no machinery there. It's just a spoken word. So there was an expectation of a sovereign deity, and that expectation was the creation of mankind. But it happened because it was spoken. Your words are powerful. Your words will give life. Your words can be weapons. Your words can bring healing, consolation. Your words can inform. Your words can inspire. But you've got to speak to it, because I think a lot of times disappointment usually occurs when there is an unspoken expectation. And so a lot of frustration comes from agreements that nobody ever actually made. It's these assumptions. We assume a lot, and part of our disappointment is in our assumptions. I say to my staff, I say to my team, and I even say it to my children, we have to have a confirmed understanding. And I don't know about you. If you're a parent, and first of all, if you are a girl's dad, then you'll know what I'm talking about. And I hope you connect with this. That sometimes, and I have girls, so they talk in codes. They talk in sort of this weird language that I don't get. My language is linear. Theirs is like assumptive, creative. It's stealth. It is popular. It's modern. It's what all the things. But when I'm talking to them, I have to keep going back to say, hey, do we have this understanding? Because it's important to me that you understand my expectation, because they want me to assume that I know what they're talking about. And so a lot of times people think about your friends, think about the friends that you have and the expectations that you've built for your friends that you never spoke the expectation. You never declared it. So you emotionally are assuming that they can read your mind and that they are locked into where you are. Well, you got to ask yourself this question. Is my disappointment coming from something that I never said, but I always expected? That happens siblings, that happens a lot in relationships, that happens in marriages, that happens in organizations, that we, because we have proximity, we think we also have promise. We have proximity and we assume promise, and then we live with the reality of the disappointment because it was never declared. So, what's your proximity to your expectation, or what's your proximity to your assumption? Just because you have proximity, you assume, well, I thought you would know. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a real black household, a real black one, right? With a black grandmama, a black mama, grandfather, all of it. So there are things that occurred in our home that were never spoken, but were always expected. And it's like, so there was no declaration of anything. It was because you have proximity and because you see rhythm, there is an expectation that's going to be made of you. And here's the point. We didn't fail their expectations. When they got disappointed, it turned into a whooping. It turned into, you can't go out, you can't, whatever it was, because you failed the expectation. You want one, you want a good one? Here's the good one I grew up on. Don't embarrass me and don't embarrass our name. Don't if we going out, don't show out, because where you show out, I'm gonna show up. This was like an expectation. So you grew up like there are some unspoken things that you got out of proximity. But I'm gonna say to you that in the world in which we're living now, you cannot assume that people understand your purpose. You can't assume that everyone is in your crowd. Everybody is not your squad. Everybody is not your crew. And so you can't expect from others what you will not declare. Because the shock isn't always what happened, it's what you thought should have happened. And that's the issue. Can I just talk about parenting for a second? Let me tell you around parenting. There is an expectation that we have as parents of our children that we never declare. So if you have to declare the expectation so that they now have a way of measuring what has been spoken so that we're not living in disappointment. I can't tell you the number of people that I counsel, the number of parents that I talk to. Matter of fact, just had one Sunday, and the mom said, "I got to talk to you." And again, raising a young boy, this is this, and I said, "Well, hey, stop. That's your expectation." Sometimes we want to take our reality and then transpose it on other people and make it the expectation that they will come out and be who we are. I'm trying to share with you that the shock isn't always what happened. It's not that it didn't materialize. It's what you thought should have happened. And that's the expectation. What I thought should happen, but I never declared it. What I thought should happen, but I never practiced in putting in a protocol, a routine, and declaring it. So there's clarity. Maybe, could it be, possibility, that our disappointment comes from the fact that we never shared our expectation. Never shared it. And thought because we were married, you knew what I expected. Thought because we lived together, you understand what we're doing. Thought because you're my child, you know what I want. Thought because you work here, you understand our vision. Thought because I was on the team that I was connected. Thought because I lived in the neighborhood, I was a part of the group. I really want you to pause to see if your disappointment has come from your unspoken expectation. I am so guilty because one of my flaws is I take people at their word. It is a huge, sometimes a big mistake because, I follow that principle, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so you're doing the things, but you're getting something different. Some expectations are standards. I'm going to tell you that. And then some are just silent demands. Some expectations are standard. This is boom. Standards are clear and their own. That's why I'm saying you have to declare it, right? But silent demands feels like you should have known. Why do I have to tell you? Again, proximity is not necessarily promise or clarity. And when expectations aren't spoken, people can't meet them. And so you got to be upfront. And then you keep collecting hurt. You keep owning disappointment because again, there was no clarity. Here is the expectation. Here's what I here's what I want out of life. Here's what I want out of this. Here's what I want. And the same thing it is with our relationship with God. There's an expectation that God has of us that he has declared through his word. And then there's an expectation that we have of him that we get through living. So do a quick receipt check. Let's do that. What was promised? Just check it. What was implied? What was assumed? What was promised? What was applied? What was implied? And then what was assumed? What did you assume would happen? Because they're not the same, right? If expectation was never voiced, then the disappointment need is different. It's a different response because there's this assumption. And then lastly, I'm gonna just tell you, go ahead and let disappointment become direction. If we're living in spaces of sadness, if we're living in spaces of unfulfillment, then some situations require repair. So, how do we go back and renegotiate what was never spoken? Or how do we go back and apologize for not being clear about what we said? And then some disappointments you just have to release. You have to let go. And you have to just understand it is what it is and then move on. This is how you're going to navigate a new season in a new year. The win is learning what was revealed about yourself, about people, about the access that they have to you, and the boundaries that you make. So if I live with expectation and disappointments and they're hand in hand, what expectation really have you been carrying in silence? What is it that you really wish someone saw so that you don't live in their silence and this failed disappointment of having a hope that was never clearly expressed? And what would you change if you finally put it into words? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. One of the things that we have to do in terms of sort of turning expectations into fulfillment and avoiding the disappointments of assumptions is the fact that we have to be clear. A lot of times we're not clear about expectations because we're afraid that those expectations will never be met. I'm the person. I'm the person that says, never mind, because I've lived with disappointment so much that I don't want to waste time, space, and emotion of being disappointed again. Because a lot of times expectation comes, or disappointment from expectations is a result that people may not really know you. Who's showing up? Who's making it clear? And when you are not clear about it, then you leave an ambiguity for people to figure it out and give you the best version of their understanding. So, if you want to avoid it, be very clear, be very intentional, be very purposeful, and be very personal. Because if you will place the burden of an expectation on an individual, an organization, a family, a marriage, a sibling, or a child, then you have to be clear about who you are. And then you just hope that they actually see you and hear you and care enough about you to help fulfill that expectation. So now that we have placed expectations on others and we're waiting for that fulfillment, or we have dealt with that disappointment, what can we do differently? The first thing I would say is that let's go back and take ownership for not being clear. Let's own the fact that we may not have communicated in the way that a person can hear it. I know we do a lot of talking. I do this for a living. We do a lot of talking. But you know what I've learned? I've learned that sometimes you have to set your speaking to someone else's hearing because they may not hear what you're saying. And you have to keep changing the combination till you get the right frequency so that they can get it. So the first thing is own it. Own the fact that you are in charge of clarity. The second thing is give yourself some grace because everyone's not going to, and nor should they, fulfill your expectation. Maybe you have an expectation that's not assigned to their capacity, and you have to live with that. You also have to make sure that you move in circles where people understand expectations, both implied, assumed, and clarified. And so, are you in the right space where people can connect to you, that care about you, and that care about not only what you do, but who you are, and then be able to assist? Because ultimately, every expectation that we may place on someone else, you have to ask yourself this question: can you fulfill it? Can you be for you what you want others to be for you? And if there's a problem, if there's a gap, then you've got to determine, first of all, it's wrong for you to place an expectation on other people or on teams or on your spouse or on your children or on your career or on your community that you yourself are not willing to fulfill. I often say this: I model what I expect so I can determine what I'll accept. It's a way of helping me manage expectation and live in the reality of those disappointments. I hope that you will bring voice to your feelings so that you can see your expectations fulfilled. This is the Undercurrent. Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching Season 2, Episode 6 of The Undercurrent, Expectations and Disappointments. I really would hope that you would subscribe to our website, our podcast. I want you to like, share, and tell a friend. If you'd like to have deeper conversations and be in a community where we discuss these things at length, please make sure you join our aligned group. It's going to be a major help for you, a benefit for your life as we build community together.